Feist in Las Vegas and joined by Hank Goldberg in Florida. And this week, I got to tell you that Hank has got a whole bevy of horses for Saturday, and he's been doing really good in college and pro football. And because we got the NBA starting and et cetera, et cetera. It's a very busy time of year. It's a great time of year to make money. And welcome aboard, Hank.
Yeah, there's a few stakes races at Belmont tomorrow that are very interesting and very playable. So you might be able to make a couple of good scores there. I handicapped most of the stakes races, and they're available on Jim's site.
That's right. Looking at the NFL card, any games you want to pop out you want to talk about?
Well, can we start with the Notre Dame Southern Cal game?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's a big game, and Southern Cal's a very popular team, although Notre Dame is a slight favorite in the game. And Notre Dame is playing pretty well right now, and Southern Cal is causing a lot of angst week after week. I think Southern Cal has been overrated for most of the year. Part of it is that I don't know. The Big Ten teams have been giving them a tough time. They have not been able to really take advantage of that great quarterback they have. Although last week they won by a point, but that was against a very inferior team. Well, not so inferior. I take that back. But I'll tell you something about Notre Dame. Their offensive line is big and strong and tough. And not only that, Notre Dame is well rested. They're coming off a bye week. And I just think that Notre Dame has a big edge at home. And I think they're, they've got a healthy guy at quarterback. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball against Southern Cal. And I don't even think this game's going to be close.
Well, Hank, you bring up a point about Southern Cal. Southern Cal's USC's a money burner. They're 1-7 against the spread, and the reason they're so overrated, I feel, is because they have this star quarterback that's going to be playing on Sundays in the near future, and he is really, really good. So people know that, and they key on that. Quarterbacks get a lot of attention, so because of him, they are overrated, because otherwise they're not that good across the board. And 1-7 against the spread is pretty bad. They are money burners, and Notre Dame is 5-1 against the spread, so it's a good matchup for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and the Southern Cal defense is not very good.
Not at all. No. Notre Dame should be able to run the ball on them, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think that offensive line will overpower Southern Cal. Anyway, I just thought that's my best pick on the college schedule this weekend. One more thing before we get off the subject of college football, and this would have some, something you can apply to Sunday too. The field at the Dolphin Stadium is a mess. The University of Miami is concerned about it. They're concerned somebody's going to get hurt. The grass has grown in there, and they have not cared for that field very well. And people are slipping and sliding, keeping and hiding all over it. And so it's put a little bit of a dent in the running game for the team. Now, Syracuse is in here tomorrow to play the Canes. And, of course, Syracuse is really in a bounce situation coming off the win against Clemson. But, you're talking about the Canes being favored by more than 2 touchdowns. I think the Canes are a little bit overrated. They've been beating teams barely, and not great teams. Now, Syracuse is not a great team either. But that team could be closer, and that field could have something to do with a lot of scoring in the game. And then on Sunday, you've got the Dolphins home against the Jets. And I think, if you're a fantasy player and you want to bet on a Giant, be careful. That field, like I said, is a mess.
Interesting, good information for sure. Syracuse is bouncing off of that big Clemson upset, and they probably will come in a little bit flat. But Miami laying that kind of number, I think they're up to 17 or something like that. So
yeah,
that's a big number. Moving on to pro football, anything you like the key on?
I'm still licking my wounds from last night, but I think one of the more interesting games this week is Philadelphia and the Redskins. And I'll tell you the one weakness that Philadelphia has played the last couple of years. They're very weak coming off a bye, and so they had last week off. And I think they could their bye couldn't have come at a worse time because their offense was really getting into a great rhythm. Now they come up against the Redskins team that historically gives them trouble. So I'm a little leery of that game. The whole world is picking the Eagles, and the line may be a little out of control. Everybody loves Wentz, and understandably so. He's become very good at picking up receivers and making adjustments. And they've got a good running game, and they've got a linebacker who's a beast in Cox. But I think that I don't know. I think Washington may keep it a little bit close. I just don't like the fact that the Eagles' season was interrupted just when they were really getting into a groove.
One other factor that might play against Philadelphia is the first game of the year. They went to Washington and they beat Washington in Washington, and that's always sets up a interdivision home loss revenge situation, which can play against you. Many times they'll split on that situation. They'll come in there. Washington will come in there with revenge.
I just will throw one caveat. I've covered Monday night games in Philadelphia, and it's a huge home advantage because the crowd there is berserk and ugly. And they're so bad. I had to do a pregame piece once out in the area where people were tailgating, and there was the Eagles were playing. I think it might have been Green Bay, and there was a lady there, very attractive lady, wearing a Packer jersey, and some of the fans came up with a big bucket of beer and poured it over her head. I mean, they're mean, those people.
Philadelphia's notorious for having a pretty rough crowd. That's for sure. It's sort of like Oakland. Oakland is pretty tough as well.
Yeah, well, I guess they're still rooting for their Raiders, too.
Well, they still are, even though they're going to leave in a couple of years. So that is true. There's a big Super Bowl rematch. You got Atlanta visiting New England after they blew the Super Bowl against them, 28-3 lead at halftime. And of course, there's been a lot of changes in Atlanta with the adjustment from the offensive coordinator position, and that's made a difference.
Well, neither team is playing like they belong in the Super Bowl right now, and Atlanta has really suffered the Super Bowl losing syndrome that affects a lot of teams because they don't look like the same team. And Matt Ryan, in particular, has been affected. He just looks like a different guy, playing without confidence. His passes are not coming close to being completed. They had some injuries, in the receiving corps, and I think one of their guys is still hurt. But he's just off target, and not only that, but they're not doing a very good job of protecting him. Now, can New England take advantage of that? Their secondary has been not very good this year, which means, you might look for a lot of scoring in the game. But, this is one of those spots where I think Belichick is the guy you got to look to get things together for the Patriots. They rarely play, poorly in successive weeks. And I think, they've got Gronk is going to be healthy for this game. That's a big factor. He's got all those tight ends he can throw the ball to. And I think that Atlanta's pass defense is, they got shut out in the second half by a pretty lousy Miami team last week. And that tells you everything you need to know about where Atlanta is right now. I don't think that was the case of them just looking ahead. They just played poorly. And they've played poorly on the road all year. So I think this is not a good spot for them.
The one big factor of the week has been the Green Bay Packers losing Aaron Rodgers. And I noticed that just in the last half a day, last 12 hours or so, the New Orleans Saints, who were 5.5 and 6 point favorites, are now 4 in most places. So there's been a little buyback on Green Bay, even though they are going with a backup quarterback and several offensive line injuries as well.
Yeah, I don't know about the offensive line injuries and who's out and who's in. They're very secretive about it. Most of the problems have been at the tackle position. But the one thing that this quarterback says he's well prepared. People I've talked to who are close to the organization say that this quarterback is who came out a year early at UCLA is now matured somewhat. And McCarthy says that he wasn't interested in going after another quarterback. That he's prepared with these two guys. I never heard of the third guy who comes from a Division III school. But anyway, they've got to keep this guy on his feet, number one. They do have a little bit of a running game. And I think that the Saints are better than people thought they were going to be. They've been playing very well. They've beaten better teams than this so far this year. And, and the defense has been the big surprise for the Saints. The defense is very much improved, and they've got 2 running backs who are so good, they were able to get rid of Adrian Peterson. He couldn't get on the field. And you saw what he did in his first game with Arizona. So I think, this is not a Saints team that's just going to be throwing the ball all over the field. They're going to try to use clock and run the ball as much as they can. Not an easy place to play. You're talking about a place that's tough. That field and that crowd is as tough as it gets.
One of your favorite guys to talk about, your name for him is Fat Face, and he's a 5.5 point favorite over Cincinnati in a division game, and Cincinnati's coming off a bye week where they had a lot of rest. Of course, Pittsburgh is coming in off of beating Kansas City and giving them their first loss of the season.
Yeah, I looked at this game and I've landed on Pittsburgh. I think, and it's not Fat-Face that made me land there. It's their improved defense. They got a key defensive player back last week, Harrison, and but in addition to that, they did a decent job of containing Kansas City running game, and the offensive line for Cincinnati is no prize. Number one. Secondly, you've got a quarterback there who is very erratic, and they really missed their tight end, and particularly when they get into the red zone. And I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to carry them in this game, and I think they're going to throw the ball sparingly. And they're 6-1 against Cincinnati. Last 7 times they played them, they don't lose on that field. So they'll be going in there with confidence. And I just think that this is a good spot for Cincinnati, for the Steelers again.
It looks like the markets have agreed with you because it opened 3.5, Pittsburgh favored, and it's up to 5.5. I don't see 6s yet, but they might start showing up.
Well, that's more what it should be. You know, it's funny. I had dinner with Roxy when I was out there a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about the lines, and he said there's so many of them that open up that aren't right. This was one of them. You got to get in there early. And you know, when he made the numbers, they didn't move. And now there's a lot of line movement. You know, the Eagles game is one that came down significantly. If you like Washington, you know, you're not getting as much as you could have earlier in the week. The Charger game seems to be moving a little bit against Denver. You know, the Seattle game seems like a high number, although I know they always play well in that stadium, but I don't know what to make of that game. And Jacksonville is, you know, favored on the road going into Indianapolis. And that quarterback for Indianapolis isn't all that bad.
No, he's not. You know, Blake Bortles has not shown any improvement in the number of years he's been around. He just is. He just looks like a bad experiment. I mean, their defense is tough. They got a decent running game, but that offense, Bortles at the helm, he just doesn't get the job done. Brissett looks like the real deal. Looks like this guy can actually play in the league. Now the team itself.
He may not be able to play Sunday. He practiced a little bit today, but he's you know, he got banged up last week and he had to come out of the game, and he hasn't practiced all week. Just had a light workout, and I think they're hiding the fact that he may not be able to go. But they have a very good guy behind him, Ivy. So he may get the call on Sunday.
Wow, that would be that. I don't think the line is showing that. That's interesting. That the line is not reflecting that, but that would be something interesting to watch. But
you got that Colts defense is horrible.
Yeah, and they ran out of gas the other night, totally.
Yeah.
Even though they had a 19-9 lead, they couldn't hold on to it. So, well, Hank, anything else before we sign off for this week?
Well, I'll be curious to see if the Browns are changing quarterbacks again. Nothing new there. I think the Vikings are trying to get by with their quarterback, and they're managing without their top quarterback and their top running back. And they've got the Ravens coming in. I think they should be okay. Carolina is going to be without Kuechly, which is not good. And I think they've got a couple of injuries, which is not good for them. And you know, this is the time of year where you got to watch that injury report. And the Cowboys are a big favorite at San Francisco, and they're going to have Ezekiel. And you got to wonder if all these start and stops with Ezekiel and his availability hasn't become a major distraction for them.
Well, I'm sure it has. You know, I don't know what to make of San Francisco. They've lost every game, but they're always close. And but they have really gone through a grinder. They've been on the road three out of the last 4 weeks. All of those games they lose by 2 or 3 points. They cover a lot of spreads, but at some point in time, you got to figure this stuff bouncing all over the country in all the 3 different time zones they played in the last couple of weeks. And Dallas is coming off successive losses at home. At some point, Dallas is going to start to get focused, I would think. The problem is this game, I'm seeing 6, 6.5, 7 on this game now. That's a pretty big number.
Yeah, you know, C.J. Beathard is probably the reason for that. You know, it's only his, I guess, first start. And they don't know what to expect from him, the betting public. He's got good mobility. He's got very good awareness of where the rush is coming from. And I don't think he's going to make too many mistakes. Going up against a not very good secondary, I think the reason the number's going up is because Dallas is getting two top defensive players back.
Well, that could make a big difference, especially going up against Beathard, who is not that experienced. So it does all add up. I just want to tell everybody that JimFeist.com has all our picks up there, and Hank's horses and sports. He's been doing incredibly well. He's doing very well in the Westgate contest out here in Las Vegas, and he's also the leader in the RJ, which is the Review Journal newspaper here in Las Vegas. So Hank's having a hell of a year, and his horses keep winning. And like he said, he's got some stake horses handicapped for tomorrow, and I suggest you get on board with those plays right away.
Yeah, I got several of the stakes races or pick six races in New York, so maybe I can give you a leg up on the big gimmick.
That'd be great. Well, thank you, Hank. Enjoyed talking to you. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, Jim. Have a good, successful weekend.
Same to you.